My daughter announced in front of 52 people that I never lifted a finger for them. On my 60th birthday, in front of 52 guests, she raised her glass, pointed to my husband, and said, "This is the father who always loved us. And you?" She never lifted a finger for us. I had been covering their mortgage and paying their bills for 15 years. I smiled and walked out. The next morning, I had 27 missed calls. I planned my 60th birthday like a gentle exhale after years of holding my breath. Frank reserved the private hall at Chatham House. White linen tables, a string trio in the corner, a guest list carefully trimmed to 52 souls who'd watched my hair turn silver, one school play, one mortgage payment, one casserole at a time. The theme was simple: grace at 60. If anyone needed grace, it was me. Frank toasted first. He told the story of how he fell in love with the girl who shelved books at the campus library and challenged him to a Scrabble duel. How I spelled quixotic on a triple word score and never let him forget it. Laughter warmed the room like August sun. Then, Melissa, my only child, radiant in cobalt silk, rose from her seat. She clinked her spoon against the flute, cheeks flushed the way they always did when attention gathered around her. I expected a sweet tease, maybe the infamous tale of how I once sent her to school in mismatched shoes because I'd been up all night with the flu. Instead, she pivoted toward Frank and raised her glass. "Dad," she declared, voice bright and sharp, "you've always been our rock, our provider, our safe place. We love you for it." Applause erupted. Frank's weathered face went pink. I clapped too, proud of the father he'd been. But then Melissa's eyes slid to me and the temperature shifted. "And Mom?" She sipped, then let the silence linger. "Mom never lifted a finger for us." The words detonated in slow motion. Gasps fluttered across linen. Forks froze halfway to mouths. 52 people pivoted toward me. Colleagues, cousins, my Pilates instructor. Waiting for a laugh track that never came, Melissa kept going. Voice syrupy. She was always too busy, too tired, too something, but that's okay. Dad carried the weight. She clinked her glass to punctuate the verdict. My lungs failed to draw air. 15 years of secret wire transfers, a mortgage payment here, an electric bill there, flashed across my mind like ticker tape. Melissa's tears the night her husband lost his job, the hush-hush promise I made to cover their note until he found work. The Saturday mornings I skipped hair appointments to mail checks marked anonymous donor. Never lifted a finger, I felt my lips curve into a practiced hostess smile. I set my untouched champagne on the table, lifted the hem of my burgundy dress so it wouldn't brush the floor, and walked between frozen faces toward the exit. My heels clicked like distant drums. Somewhere behind me the trio stuttered, then resumed in a minor key. In the corridor, chandeliers cast fractured light on velvet wallpaper. I steadied myself against a brass rail, waiting for anger to rise. It didn't, only a hollow calm, as if the universe had just revealed a cracked foundation flush beneath fresh paint. Frank appeared breathless. "Ava, come back. She's drunk. She didn't mean—" "She meant every syllable," I answered, voice hushed but steady. "Let her finish the show." He reached for my hand. I slipped free. "Stay and thank our guests," I said. "Someone has to." Then I walked into the night air, crisp and unsparing. At home, I traded sequins for flannel pajamas, made chamomile tea, and sat at the kitchen table under the hum of the refrigerator. The clock ticked past midnight. My phone lay silent until 12:17 a.m., when it lit with Melissa's name. I flipped it face down. By dawn, 27 missed calls glowed like a rash across the screen. Melissa, Frank, my sister, even Pastor Ray. I stared at the numbers, thumb hovering. Did Melissa call to apologize or to scold me for stealing her spotlight by walking out? I pictured her living room, the mortgage I'd paid for a decade, imagined her pacing, wondering if I'd expose the truth she apparently forgot. For the first time since the Scrabble duel, clarity settled over me. Silence can bruise, yes, but it can also sharpen. I didn't owe anyone a midnight explanation, but the ledger of what I'd given and what she believed I'd withheld, that imbalance demanded correction. So I brewed a fresh cup of tea, opened my laptop, and pulled up 15 years of bank statements. If Melissa wanted proof I'd never lifted a finger, I'd hand her the weight of everyone. And friends, trust me, you'll want to see how heavy those receipts turn out to be. Sleep never came. By 6 a.m., the kitchen smelled of burnt toast and resolve. The sun painted weak stripes across the tile while I scrolled 15 years of banking PDFs like they were chapters of a forgotten gospel. Line after line, 1U376.42, Melissa mortgage, Coach 218.10, utility payment, 4,500 orthodontics deposit. I totaled the columns, then totaled them again because the number felt fictional. 312,487. That's how much not lifting a finger cost. My phone buzzed again. Call. 28. Frank. I silenced it, clicked open Melissa's latest voicemail. Mom, I was tipsy and showing off. Call me, okay? Everyone's freaking out. Tipsy? Showing off? And I pictured 52 guests replaying the toast over breakfast, deciding whether it was funny or cruel. My cheeks flamed at the thought, but my anger cooled into something harder. Strategy. Frank's text followed. Please talk to her before this blows up. Too late, it already had. Inside me. I brewed fresh coffee, printed the statement summaries, and slid them into a crimson binder. The pages felt heavier than standard paper. Maybe regret has mass. At 8:10 a.m., I answered Frank's call. His voice sounded hoarse, contrite. Ava, she's mortified. She wants to apologize. Does she want to understand? I asked. He hesitated. She was crying. Said she doesn't remember everything. I remember enough for both of us. I thumbed the binder's spine. Tell her lunch at our house noon. You too. No audience this time. Frank exhaled relief laced with dread. I'll drive her. 11:55 a.m. I set the dining table with the good china. Irony intended. The crimson binder sat center stage, flanked by 2 place cards, Frank and Melissa. Beside it, I placed a single unopened envelope addressed to the mortgage company. The doorbell chimed. Frank entered first, eyes pleading. Melissa followed, sunglasses hiding whatever story her mascara told. She clutched a lavender bakery box, my favorite lemon bars. The gesture almost cracked me, but I'd learned last night that sweetness without substance is empty calories. Mom, I was horrible, she blurted before sitting. I don't know why I said, you knew, I corrected gently. You believed it. I slid the binder toward her. Flip any page. She opened to March 3 years ago, 11,200 by home equity lump sum, the down payment that saved her house from foreclosure. What is this? She whispered. The fingers I never lifted. My voice stayed calm, but my chest hammered. I paid your bills in secret because you begged me not to tell Frank, said it would embarrass Josh. I respected that. Maybe I enabled it, but I never demanded gratitude. Silence was the price of your dignity. I swallowed. Last night you publicly stamped me worthless. Tears slipped beneath her sunglasses. Frank removed them gently, as if unveiling guilt. I don't remember half those transfers, Melissa stammered. You wouldn't. They came from my retirement account. Shock rippled across her face. But Dad's pension covers us fine. Your father doesn't even know the full amount. I met Frank's eyes. Correction? Didn't. His jaw tightened, pain blooming. Ava, why hide this from me? Because a parent's instinct is to rescue. I worried you'd judge her husband, push too hard, make things worse. I turned to Melissa. I chose quiet help. You chose public hurt. Silence pooled until Melissa's sob broke the surface. Mom, I'm so sorry. I was drunk, jealous. Everyone praises you. I feel like a failure. Failure isn't asking for help, I said. Failure's forgetting who helped. She crumpled, shoulders shaking. Frank leaned in, voice thick. How do we fix this? I pushed the sealed envelope forward. That's the final mortgage payment. After today, you're on your own. Frank and I will fund our retirement, our travel, causes that feed souls. Tears blurred my vision. I still love you. But love without boundaries isn't love, it's surrender. Melissa traced the envelope's edge like it might cut her. I don't deserve this. Grace isn't earned, I said, but respect can be. I pointed to the binder. Tomorrow you'll call each company and transfer accounts to your name. Then you'll apologize. Not just to me, but to every guest who heard your toast. She nodded, eyes swollen but clear. I will. She reached for my hand. For the first time since college, hers felt small in mine. After they left, I stepped onto the porch. The autumn air smelled of maples and unseen futures. My phone buzzed. Text from Melissa. Thank you for lifting more than a finger. I'll start lifting my own. I smiled, not wide, not fixed, but real, the kind that knows grace can coexist with boundaries. Don't go far, friends. Next, you'll see how a single binder triggers a family financial audit, a marriage confession, and a revelation that forces Melissa to choose between comfort and character. The Monday after my binder conversation, I expected quiet, maybe a lingering ache, maybe Melissa's promised apology emails to our party guests. Instead, the universe decided tranquility was overrated. It began at 9:14 a.m. with a number flashing Washington, D.C. across my caller ID. Assuming a political robocall, I nearly let it ring out. But habit won. I answered with my tidy Eva speaking. Mrs. Patterson, this is Special Agent Ramirez with the Internal Revenue Service, Fraud Investigation Division. His tone was polite enough to frost glass. We've detected irregularities on mortgage interest deductions claimed under your Social Security number. May I confirm a few details? Blood drained from my ears. My Social Security number? The only mortgage I'd ever carried, ours, had been paid off years earlier, unless Melissa's house. Agent Ramirez, I said, voice steady as a teacup on an earthquake table. I think those deductions trace back to payments I made for my daughter. All funds were gifts, not loans. He paused, doors clicking on a keyboard. We noticed the lender lists you as silent co-borrower. Your daughter may have refinanced using your credit in 2018. Silent co-borrower. My head spun to that frantic 2018 call, Melissa sobbing about foreclosure paperwork arriving at dawn. Had she slipped a document for my signature in the thick of that crisis? My memory blurred. I'd like to cooperate fully, I said. Please email the documents in question. I'll review immediately. He collected my information, then added, Mrs. Patterson, a secondary flag involves charitable gift taxes. The totals exceed annual exclusion limits for multiple consecutive years. Translation: the IRS thought my generosity looked like unreported income shuffling. Wonderful. Frank found me at the kitchen island, IRS email open, hands shaking over a legal pad. I explained, voice brittle. Turns out I'm a co-borrower on Melissa's refinance, and the government thinks I'm laundering money through her mortgage. His shoulders sank. Ava, why didn't you tell me she refinanced? I searched memory. That chaotic week, Melissa pregnant with her second, Josh job hunting, tears smearing phone screens, she'd couriered papers saying temporary hardship. I'd signed without glasses, trusting trust itself. Frank exhaled, rubbed temples. We vowed no big financial moves without mutual consent. Guilt struck, A physical blow. I'm sorry, I whispered. I wanted to shield everyone from embarrassment. Looks like I hid us into an audit instead. He said nothing, but the hurt in his eyes bruised deeper than Melissa's toast. I called Melissa, voice clipped. Did you refinance in 2018 using my credit? Silence, then a tiny inhale. Mom, I put your name to secure a lower rate. We were underwater. Josh didn't qualify. You forged my signature? Tears crackled through the speaker. You were already paying. I thought it wouldn't matter. Just paperwork. Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I pinched the bridge of my nose. The IRS matters, Melissa. They've opened a fraud investigation. Panic spiked her tone. Will I go to jail? What about the kids? That depends on transparency, I said. Email me every refinance document today and call Josh. He deserves honesty before auditors knock. She sobbed in assent. That night, Frank and I sat at the dining table again, only now the crimson binder bulged with IRS printouts, refinance contracts, my forged signature trembling beneath cheap ink. Frank scanned each page, jaw tight. We need counsel, he said, and boundaries for real this time, legal ones. We engaged a tax attorney, Ms. Chen, sharp, unflappable. She reviewed files, then spoke in crisp syllables. Good news. The IRS usually prefers repayment plans to prosecution. Bad news, forged signatures complicate matters, will position you as an uninformed victim who's already cooperating. Frank squeezed my hand under the table. For once, I let him carry part of the weight. Melissa and Josh came over the following evening, faces ghost pale. Josh looked betrayed, clutching a printed email, Melissa's confession. We gathered in the living room, Frank between tensions like a referee without stripes. Melissa's apology poured out. Tears, remorse, a promise to take on an extra shift, sell the second car, anything. Josh listened, grief carving new lines into his cheeks. When she finished, he turned to me. I had no idea you were on the mortgage. I'm sorry for my part in this mess. I nodded. Intentional or not, damage is damage. Then I slid 2 envelopes across the coffee table, one detailing an IRS repayment schedule Miss Chen deemed likely, the second a quit-claim deed removing my name from their loan once refinanced legitimately. Your path to comfort crosses through character, I told them. Choose character. They signed both. Easier said than done. Refinancing without my credit would soon expose Josh's lingering debt, but sometimes truth's sting is the only anesthetic for denial. When they left, Frank wrapped his arms around me. We'll weather the audit, he said, together. Tears spilled. Relief, sorrow, maybe a bit of pride at finally choosing transparency over self-sacrifice masquerading as love. The audit notice arrived on pale green stationery 3 weeks later, delivered by a courier who looked apologetic just for ringing the bell. Frank signed for it while I dried my hands on a dish towel and tried not to imagine every possible catastrophe folded inside that envelope. Miss Chen met us on Zoom that afternoon. Her calm reminded me of a surgeon outlining a high-risk operation. The IRS would send a field agent to our home, she explained, but not to intimidate, mostly to clarify documents and verify that the forged refinance truly blindsided me. Show them everything, she repeated. Transparency is your armor. Frank cleared the guest room, stacking boxes of statements I'd printed and sleeved in plastic protectors. I labeled them by year, by account, by sacrifice, the orthodontic loan, the emergency furnace repair, the secret college application fees I'd paid when Melissa worried Josh would say no. Watching the binders line up like disciplined soldiers, I felt an odd surge of dignity. At least the record would tell a story. I had been too timid to voice. Agent Turner arrived on a rainy Thursday, trench coat dripping on the doormat. He looked barely older than Melissa, but his handshake was firm and his eyes kind behind steel-rimmed glasses. He placed a small recorder on the dining room table and asked me to start at the beginning. My first payment on Melissa's mortgage. I heard myself recount 15 years of quiet wires and late-night checks the way a historian might describe a distant skirmish. Precise, detached, almost clinical. Yet when I described signing the refinance papers while Melissa cried over a crib assembly manual, my voice cracked. Agent Turner paused the recorder, slid a box of tissues toward me, then restarted with a single nod. For 2 hours he leafed through binders, occasionally circling a number with his red pen, asking follow-ups with gentle persistence. He never said whether my answers helped or hurt. He simply collected the puzzle pieces and promised to assemble them back at the district office. When he left, the house felt simultaneously heavier and somehow aired out, like someone had opened windows in rooms I'd long kept sealed. Meanwhile, Melissa began the gauntlet Miss Chen designed. First stop. The branch manager who had approved her forged refinance. She dreaded the meeting, certain he would lecture or threaten legal action. Instead, she came home pale and shaky, telling me he'd been almost fatherly, explaining the fines, the credit repair steps, the mandatory fraud class she'd need to pass. She'd expected scorn. What she encountered was accountability laced with grace. That night, she texted me a photo of her course enrollment form, circling the class title, Ethics of Personal Finance, and adding a thumbs-up emoji as if that tiny icon could mop up all the wreckage. The real surprise arrived the next morning, an email from Agent Turner. He had been reviewing Melissa's forged documents and found metadata showing the signature fields auto-filled from an online template linked to a predatory refinance broker, one already under federal investigation for exploiting distressed homeowners. That breadcrumb, he wrote, could shift the narrative further in my favor and might even reduce Melissa's liability if she cooperated as a witness. He copied Ms. Chen, noting that while he could not give legal advice, he didn't like seeing good families dismantled by hidden fees and louder mistakes. Frank read the email twice, shoulders relaxing by increments. "The guy's rooting for us," he whispered, as though speaking it aloud might jinx the goodwill. I just felt relief settling into my bones, a gentle weight instead of the crushing kind. Later, while Frank napped, I called Melissa to share the news. She answered with the rattle of pots in the background. The kids were clamoring for mac and cheese. When I told her about the broker investigation, her voice cracked into a sob I could almost see. "I swear, Mom, I didn't know it was that kind of company," she whispered. I believed her, finally, unequivocally. The realization loosened something knotted in my chest. That weekend, she stood before our church's women's group, many of whom had been at my birthday, and apologized publicly. She didn't blame alcohol or stress. She blamed pride and the fear of appearing weak. As she spoke, I felt no gloating, just the quiet hum of a ledger clearing another entry. Monday brought Agent Turner's final visit. He walked through the binders one last time, recorded a statement from Melissa, then shook our hands and said the words I hadn't dared hope for. "We'll recommend closing the criminal angle, pursuing only civil adjustment and restitution. Your cooperation was textbook, Mrs. Patterson." He left a business card on the table. On the back he'd handwritten, "Grace with boundaries is still grace." I slipped the card into the crimson binder, a bookmark for the chapter we'd survived. But stories rarely end where agents close folders. A voicemail blinked on my phone that night, Josh asking to meet without Melissa. His tone carried secrets heavy enough to bend steel, and something in my gut said the audit had unearthed more than forged signatures. I poured tea, opened a fresh legal pad, and braced for whatever truth still waited in the unturned margins. Josh asked to meet at Miller's Diner, neon humming, booths cracked with decades of secrets. I arrived first, legal pad tucked in my purse like armor. He slid into the opposite seat, eyes ringed with sleepless purple. No small talk, just a folded utility bill he pushed across the formica. "Look at the account number," he said. I scanned the header. Tri-County Power and Gas. My name sat beside Melissa's, though I'd never opened an account in their state. Below, a payment agreement box listed 6 months of back-charged utilities, electric, gas, and water, tacked onto a line of credit labeled P-Assist. Josh traced it with a shaky finger. "That's a shadow loan." The broker set it up along with the refinance, rolled our overdue bills into a credit facility using your social and a forged e-signature. My stomach pitched. So the mortgage wasn't the only thing in my name. "Not even close," he whispered. "There's a roofer lien, too. When our AC died, the broker arranged home improvement financing. We never saw paperwork. I thought Melissa handled it." I inhaled, steadying my voice. "Why tell me now?" He swallowed. "Therapy homework. Make amends to everyone you harmed, starting with the worst. And the IRS subpoena landed on our doorstep this morning. They want records of every loan with your signature." The neon clock ticked 6:37 p.m. The diner buzz dimmed as though the world leaned closer. I opened my pad. "Walk me through every account." For an hour, Josh confessed. Payday advances to cover gambling after his layoff rolled into refinance points, utility loans hiding winter heat and debt, a zero-down roofing contract forged in my name at 18% interest. He'd buried each domino under the next until the stack reached my doorstep. When his list ended, I felt oddly calm, as if shock had exhausted its ammo. Melissa knows. She knows about the refinancing lie, not the rest. I was too ashamed. I closed my pad, slid it into my purse. Shame grows in dark. Shine light. Tonight. His shoulders sagged in surrender. "Will you press charges?" "I don't know yet," I said, but silence is what got us here. Outside, dusk settled like bruised silk. Josh hugged himself against the chill. "I'll tell her," he promised, voice fragile. "Tell her with documents," I said, handing him a copy of Agent Turner's card. "And bring your confession to Miss Chen tomorrow." At home, Frank stirred chili on the stove. Tension etched between his brows. I relayed the diner confessions. He ladled soup, listening without interruption. When I finished, he set the spoon down. "We protect ourselves first, then we decide who answers what." We spent the next 3 hours combing my credit report. 2 surprises emerged. A dormant, high-interest credit line opened the same month as the roof repair, and a medical equipment lease I'd never seen. Total exposure, another $23,000. I emailed Miss Chen at 1:12 a.m. with attachments and questions. Exhaustion finally dragged me to bed, but sleep was thin, stitched with images of dominoes toppled by a single forged click. Morning delivered Ms. Chen's reply. She would file an identity theft affidavit, request account freezes, and notify Agent Turner. "The broader the fraud, the clearer your victim status," she wrote, "but we must act before creditors sue." Coffee in hand, I called Melissa. Her voice answered small. Josh had confessed. She'd stayed up crying until dawn. "Mom, I don't know who we are anymore," she said. "People who can change," I answered. "Meet me at noon. Bring every bill." By lunchtime, our dining table resembled a crime scene archive. Miss Chen dialed in by speakerphone, guiding us through affidavits, notarizations, and debt validation letters. Melissa and Josh signed each page, ink strokes heavy with remorse. When the last document slid into the outbound envelope, Melissa looked at me, eyes red but resolute. I'm ready to tell the kids why Grandma's name can't be a shortcut to safety. Later, as she and Josh left, Frank joined me on the porch. "You're shaking," he whispered. "It's cold," I lied, though the air was mild. In truth, I trembled at how thin the line is between love and enabling, between help and harm. "We've survived birthdays, audits, even forged deeds," Frank said, pulling me close. "We'll survive this too." My phone vibrated. Unknown DC agent Turner again. "Mrs. Patterson," he said. "New development. The refinance broker just turned state's evidence. He claims an employee at Tri-County Power pressured clients into fraudulent add-on loans. Your testimony, and your daughter's, could expand the case." I watched clouds crawl across the afternoon sky, feeling both exhausted and strangely hopeful. Maybe every domino that fell could form a path forward. "Tell me where and when," I answered. Turner paused. "A federal grand jury in 2 weeks, and Mrs. Patterson, your cooperation could wipe the civil penalties." I hung up, heart pounding with possibility. Frank raised an eyebrow. "Good news?" "Potentially," I said, squeezing his hand, "but it means one more public reckoning." I stepped inside, opened the crimson binder, and placed a blank notebook on top. A new chapter needed pages. 2 weeks rush by faster when every day holds a new affidavit. I sign papers until my wrist throbs, memorize dates, verify emails from Agent Turner, answer quick-fire questions from Miss Chen. "Did you ever authorize a power of attorney in 2017? "No." "Do you recall a roof inspection company called Pinnacle?" "Only the bill, never the salesman." Nights blend into dawn while Frank reheats coffee, steady as my pulse. On the morning of the federal grand jury appearance, Washington is drenched. Monument marble streaked like teardrops in stone. Melissa and Josh sit 3 rows ahead on the plane, knees touching, words hushed. I can almost taste their fear in the recycled air. Eli texts me a sticker of a door flung open, wishing luck. Frank squeezes my hand at takeoff and whispers, "Truth travels lighter than secrets." I hope he's right. At the courthouse security queue, we surrender phones, belts, dignity. The clerk leads us to a taupe witness room where fluorescent lights hum like anxious bees. Turner appears in a charcoal suit, carrying folders thick enough to fell a sapling. "You'll testify separately," he reminds us. "Sequence determined by the prosecutor." He softens. "Tell the story the records already confirm." Melissa is called first. She turns, eyes searching before vanishing through heavy oak doors. I pace circles until the carpet's pattern blurs. 46 minutes later, the door opens. She emerges pale but upright, whispers, "They asked about every account. I told them everything." Josh stands to hug her, but the marshal beckons me next. Inside, 23 jurors sit in curved rows under an American flag that seems to weigh more than cloth. The assistant U.S. attorney, a woman with salt and pepper curls, guides me through sworn oath and chair. She begins with gentle strokes. My birthday, my profession before retirement, confirmation of the refinance. Then the finer blades. How did you first discover your signature had been used without consent? Did you receive any financial benefit? Each answer lands clean. I feel surprisingly steady, as though the room itself holds me upright. Halfway through, the prosecutor pauses, confers with an agent, then announces a corroborating witness. The side door opens and an unexpected figure steps in, Frank's younger brother, Raymond. My breath stutters. Raymond lives 6 states away. We exchanged Christmas cards and little else. Why is he here? The prosecutor introduces him as a former regional manager for Tri-County Power. Murmurs ripple across the jurors. She asks me to remain. Seat Raymond beside me. Mr. Patterson, do you recognize the witness? He nods toward me. My sister-in-law. Under oath, he testifies that during his tenure, a sales rep bragged about a golden list of elderly co-signers, usually relatives, whose credit and signatures they could attach to shadow loans. He'd raised concerns, but corporate higher-ups ignored him until he quit in disgust. He never knew my name was on that list, until Agent Turner showed him documents last week. Hearing a Patterson voice describe the scheme needles me with a mix of gratitude and betrayal. Why didn't Raymond warn us sooner? But the jurors lean forward. Their faces tighten in shared indignation. The prosecutor thanks him, then asks if I have a statement. I do. I turn to the panel, voice steady. My husband's family kept this secret out of shame my daughter forged out of desperation. Silence wrapped fraud in a cloak of family love. I'm here to unwrap it. A juror nods, pen frozen over notepad. Questions conclude. The prosecutor dismisses me. As I stand, Raymond touches my arm. Eva, I'm sorry, he whispers, eyes rimmed red. I manage a stiff nod. Emotion can wait. Back in the witness room, Melissa clutches a bottle of water, knuckles white. Josh's foot bounces like a piston. Turner enters, says the jurors need no further testimony today. They requested documentation on the golden list, he adds, glancing at Raymond, who's just stepped in. Frank arrives from the lobby, relief and curiosity warring on his face. I explain Raymond's role in hushed tones. Frank's shoulders slump, tempered by pride that his brother finally spoke up. We leave the courthouse into silver drizzle. Reporters pepper us with questions, but Turner ushers us to waiting cars. At the hotel, Melissa retreats to her room. Josh follows. Frank and I sit by the lobby fireplace where steam rises from paper cups. He speaks first. You're calm on that stand. Never seen anything like it. I squeeze his knee. My strength felt borrowed from every sleepless night I once spent wiring money no one knew about. At midnight, my phone buzzes. An email from the U.S. Attorney's Office states the grand jury will reconvene next week for indictment votes. Outcome appears favorable. Favorable, one word, yet my lungs finally fill to capacity. But the message ends with a caution. Tri-County's top lawyer filed a motion seeking to disqualify Raymond's testimony, claiming family bias. Without him, the golden list evidence might crumble. We have 72 hours to gather corroboration, former employees, internal emails, anything. I forward the email to Ms. Chen, ask for an emergency call. Then I stare out the hotel window at Capitol lights shimmering like distant candles. Another race against the clock. We land back home just after dawn, 71 hours left on the clock. Ms. Chen's overnight voicemail greets us the moment we clear baggage claim. We need at least one non-family witness or documentary proof that Tri-County used forged co-signers as a business practice. I've subpoenaed internal emails, but whistleblowers are faster. Call anyone Raymond remembers. Raymond's memory, it turns out, is a metal trap once the lid lifts. Over speakerphone, he lists 3 former colleagues who quit within months of each other. Linda Chang, data analyst, Sergio Morales, junior loan officer, and Marley Benton, call center supervisor. They all complained about management pushing ghost guarantors. He says, I jot numbers with frantic strokes. Linda answers first from Portland. coffee grinder roaring behind her. She remembers spreadsheets color-coded red for accounts lacking a credit-worthy signer. Upper brass told us, "Find a grandmother, a godparent, anyone," she says. She still has a thumb drive of compliance memos. Fired staff were asked to wipe them, but she made a copy for conscience. My pulse jumps. She agrees to forward everything to Ms. Chen and testify by video if subpoenaed. Sergio calls back at noon. His voice shakes. He now sells used cars and wants nothing to do with courts, but admits he kept voicemail backups, in case they ever blame me. I promise anonymity until counsel contacts him. He bites his lip on the video chat, then hits send. 5 audio files arrive in my inbox moments later. I play one. A senior manager boasting, "Just paste the parent's digital signature. We have macros for that." My skin prickles. Frank mutters, "That'll sing in front of jurors." The third name, Marley, proves elusive. Her number defunct, LinkedIn silent. I scour Facebook, find a profile with the same surname but different first name. I message anyway. 2 hours later, a reply, "Yes, I'm that Marley. Who wants to know why I left Tri-County?" We schedule a midnight Zoom, only time she can talk before her nursing home shift. While gathering witnesses, Melissa and Josh sift boxes in their garage for anything bearing Tri-County letterhead. They text photos of training manuals stamped confidential, notes scribbled, GP sign trick, every shard matters. At 4 p.m., EMS. Chen gathers us on a group call. Good news. Linda's thumb drive holds emails with explicit directives to attach relatives without consent. Bad news. Tri-County's lawyer just filed an emergency motion claiming the company underwent rogue employee activity. They're pinning the blame on one deceased VP. My heart sinks. A scapegoat with no pulse can't argue back. Ms. Chen sends us to work. We have 48 hours to connect corporate leadership. Get that call center supervisor on record. Midnight Zoom feels clandestine. Marley appears in scrubs, phone propped against a vending machine. She recounts a 2019 meeting where executives presented a slide deck titled Family Plus Finance First and Faster Funding. She'd complained to HR. 2 weeks later, her hours were slashed. She quit, took her screenshots home. "I can't watch them dodge this," she says, eyes blazing. She emails the deck before clocking in. By dawn, Ms. Chen has enough to file a supplemental brief opposing Tri-County's motion. Yet Turner warns me that corporate counsel will still try to impeach biased family testimony. He suggests we search personal devices for anything tying Melissa or me to explicit broker pressure. I cringe. My old laptop from 2018 lives in a closet under photo albums. Frank retrieves it, battery swollen. We run power through a docking cable, the screen flickers to life. Buried in an archive of downloaded statements is a voicemail file labeled Unknown Known 30488M4A. I click play. A man's voice, slick, confident, says, "Ava, just need your quick e-signature today so Melissa's rate lock doesn't expire. It's basically a formality." My heart races. I never heard this message. Melissa must have forwarded calls to her phone and deleted it from mine. The metadata shows it was automatically saved during a sync. Turner's thrilled. Direct proof of deceptive practice targeting you personally. He submits the file to the prosecutor within the hour. The following evening, we assemble in Ms. Chen's office to rehearse. Melissa stands behind a conference room chair, practicing how to state her signature was forged, at a broker's urging while Josh nods support. Raymond reviews his timeline, bolstered by Linda's thumb drive evidence. I rehearse my part. Fingers wrapped around the courage stone Eli mailed with a sticky note, "Grandma, break every lock." 36 hours later, the prosecutor notifies us. Tri-County's motion is denied. The grand jury will hear all whistleblower statements plus the voicemail. Be ready, she adds. They'll come after credibility, especially family. I sleep 3 hours. Dream of dominoes and courtroom lights. At sunrise, Eli texts a photo, chalk on his school sidewalk reading "Tell it all." Mrs. P.I. smile, nerves steadying. This story started with a toast meant to humiliate me. It might end with a company forced to swallow its own shame. Friends, the grand jury chamber awaits, and Tri-County's attorney has subpoenaed a surprise witness who could derail everything. Someone claiming I knew about the forged refinance all along. Next, we step into the room where verdicts are born and lies try to dress up as truth. The federal courthouse feels colder the second time around, though late spring sun glares off its glass skin. Our little coalition, Frank, Melissa, Josh, Raymond, Linda on video call, files past security like a mismatched choir rehearsing different hymns. The U.S. Attorney's aide meets us outside the grand jury room and whispers the surprise. Tri-County's counsel has subpoenaed Nora Whitman, the notary who witnessed my signature on the refinance. Their theory, flatly stated, Mrs. Patterson knowingly co-signed to boost her daughter's credit, then feigned ignorance to dodge tax penalties. Inside the witness room, Miss Chen rubs her temples. They'll paint you as a co-conspirator. We counter with the voicemail and whistleblower documents. Stay factual. She looks to Melissa. Your mother's credibility rests partly on you owning the forgery under oath. Melissa nods, spine straighter than I've seen in months. The marshal appears. Mrs. Patterson, you're first. I step into the panel's semicircle of faces. The assistant U.S. attorney guides me gently through the story I've rehearsed. The late-night mortgage panic, the courier envelope, the trust that blurred into negligence. Then she plays the voicemail, slick broker, ticking clock. Jurors exchange dark glances. Forensics tech verifies metadata. Timestamp March 4th, 2018. I never returned that call. Tri-County's lawyer, Mr. Stanhope, cross-examines. He projects my old email replying, "Thanks, I'll sign ASAP," to the broker. "Is this your message?" he asks. "It is." Sent after Melissa called crying, not after hearing the salesman's voicemail. Stanhope draws out the timeline to suggest complicity. I clarify. I was told it was a temporary hardship form, not a refinance. I trusted my daughter and a licensed broker. Stanhope smirks, but jurors scribble notes. Next comes Melissa. She admits forging my DocuSign, her voice quivering but firm. Stanhope hammers, "Did your mother ever ask what she was signing?" "She believed me," Melissa says. I abuse that trust. Her tears are unembellished. One juror offers a tissue. Linda's video testimony lands like a data avalanche. Emails ordering staff to attach elder guarantors, color-coded spreadsheets of ghost co-signers. Raymond confirms leadership's awareness during quarterly meetings. Still, Stanhope saves his trump. Notary Nora. She enters in a navy suit, eyes darting. Under oath, she claims I appeared with Melissa at the broker's office, showed ID, even chatted about Eli's soccer game. I feel Frank tense behind me. Stanhope asks, "Is there any doubt that Mrs. Patterson knew exactly what she signed?" Nora's voice falters but steadies. "None." The prosecutor stands. "Ms. Whitman, can you identify anyone else present?" Nora lists 2 employees, one relocated overseas, one can't recall. Then the prosecutor displays security camera logs from that day. Metadata shows cameras offline. Next, she projects Nora's disciplinary record, 6 notary violations in 5 years, gasps ripple. Prosecutor reads a plea deal Nora signed yesterday. Immunity for truthful testimony, perjury voids it, sweat beads on Nora's brow. Finally, the voicemail plays again. Prosecutor asks, if Mrs. Patterson visited in person, why would the broker call begging for an e-signature? Nora stammers. Jurors lean forward. Prosecutor closes. Perjury carries 5 years, Miss Whitman. Would you like to amend your statement? Silence stretches, then Nora whispers, I never saw her. The broker told me signatures were family consent. I notarized remotely. The room exhales. Credibility tilts back our way. After lunch break, Stanhope doesn't return to cross. Rumor says Tri-County entered settlement talks. The prosecutor recalls me briefly. Mrs. Patterson, do you have anything to add? I lift Eli's courage stone from my pocket, holding it where jurors can see the worn letters. Only that trust is not a blank check. Companies and families forget that. Gavel taps. Testimony ends. Outside, storm clouds muscle across the sky. Raymond clasps my shoulder. You were steel up there. Melissa hugs me, whispering thanks through tears fresh yet lighter. Josh shakes Frank's hand, promising his first Gamblers Anonymous chip next week. We're halfway down courthouse steps when Agent Turner calls. Off the record, grand jury sentiment looks strong for full indictment against Tri-County execs. Nora's reversal sealed corporate knowledge. I breathe for what feels like the first time in months that evening. Back on Maple Street, porch lights flicker on like a guard of honor. Eli sprints down the walkway, waving chalk-stained hands. Grandma, they let us write on the school wall. Truth needs no forgery. I laugh, gather him close. Frank sets the crimson binder on a shelf next to a new blue one labeled Forward Plans, college fund ledgers, travel brochures, no secrets. But just as Kettlewater sings, Miss Chen texts. Tri-County's parent conglomerate might file bankruptcy to dodge payouts. We need to prepare victim statements for the compensation pool. Deadline 5 days. I stare at the message. Another hurdle. Another clock. 5 days to stop a billion-dollar corporation from flushing our restitution into the dark wash of bankruptcy court. Ms. Chen's war room became our dining room, laptops humming, sticky notes colonizing the walls, Eli's chalk slogan, "Truth needs no forgery," taped above the coffee maker like a battle flag. Frank fielded calls to other victims. Raymond linked ex-employees on LinkedIn, and Melissa, hair pulled back, eyes red but steady, typed victim statements between diaper changes and mortgage refinance rejection letters. Day 1, Ms. Chen explains the gambit. Tri-County's parent conglomerate, Delta Ever, will file under Chapter 11, shielding assets while stalling payouts. Our strategy is to prove intentional fraud, which pierces bankruptcy protection and forces a victim's trust, funded by executive bonuses and liability insurance. But to show intent, we need internal ledgers. Rumored encrypted financials that tracked ghost guarantors as probability multipliers. The thumb drive Linda sent had email chatter about the ledger, but not the files themselves. Raymond remembers an old colleague, Theo Griggs, server admin who once joked about hiding the Golden Goose database behind a Sudoku-style password grid. We cold call every Griggs in his contacts, the 6th pickup. Theo now fixes arcade machines in Baltimore and wants to forget corporate cults. Miss Chen and I drive 4 hours through pounding rain, bribing a GPS that keeps rerouting us. Theo meets us in a shuttered bowling alley, solder iron in hand, Pac-Man ghosts glowing behind him. He listens as we outline Delta Ever's bankruptcy plan and the millions that will vanish from harmed families. His shoulders slump. I still have a server snapshot, he says, wiping flux from his fingers. Kept it as insurance I'd never use. He agrees to copy the ledger onto an external drive if the U.S. attorney grants limited immunity for violating non-disclosure. Turner texts back 5 minutes later, "Granted, bring him in." Day 3, we deliver Theo and the drive to the courthouse. Forensic techs verify the encryption and start cracking. Hours creep. Eli sits in the lobby sketching superheroes who wield ledger books like shields. Melissa writes her statement, 6 paragraphs of apology and resilience, and hands it to Turner with hands that no longer shake. Day 4, 3 a.m., Miss Chen's phone pings, texts crack the ledger. Inside, a column titled Elder tagging every unauthorized cosigner plus executive approval initials. Intent documented. We need printouts for the bankruptcy hearing scheduled 48 hours later in Richmond. We caravan south at dawn, Ms. Chen, Turner, Theo with Marshall escort, Raymond and me in Frank's SUV, Melissa and Josh trailing with Eli asleep under a blanket. Richmond's courthouse looms like a stone sentinel. Delta. Evers counsel in charcoal suits march inside carrying binders thick as vault doors. The judge, silver-haired and sharp, opens proceedings with clipped efficiency. Delta Evers' attorney argues reorganization will preserve thousands of jobs. Ms. Chen stands, slides the decrypted ledger onto the evidence table. The paper stack lands with a smack that echoes. She speaks without theatrics. These entries document systemic elder signature fraud approved at the highest levels. Bankruptcy cannot shield criminal enrichment. She calls Theo. He testifies about the golden goose. Delta Evers' attorney objects. Cites chain of custody, but the ledger's metadata matches corporate servers. Objection overruled. Next, Melissa takes the stand. Voice clear, no tears. She recounts forging, fearing, and finally confessing. My mother paid our bills. Trusted my word. Delta ever weaponized that trust and preyed on her credit. I'm responsible for my lie, but they built the template. Her final sentence hangs heavy. We are more than numbers in a spreadsheet. The judge recesses to chambers for what feels like a century. In the hallway, Eli presses the courage stone into Melissa's palm. Your turn to carry it, he whispers. When the judge returns, his ruling spills like steady rain. Chapter 11. Accepted, but fraud claims carved out. Executives' golden parachute funds frozen. A victim's restitution trust created and seeded with Delta Evers liability policy plus clawback bonuses. $180 million. He appoints a special fraud examiner. Agent Turner, Delta Ever counsel tries to argue, but the gavel falls. Case closed. Outside, reporters swarm. Melissa steps forward first. I forged a signature that almost sank my family. Today the truth saved us, and hundreds of others. She hands microphones to Frank, who raises the ledger printout. Grace with boundaries, he says, voice steady. That's how you protect the people you love. Back on Maple Street that night, porch lights glow warm, not watchful. Frank shelves the blue forward plans binder beside the crimson one. We'll need both. Melissa and Josh arrive with takeout and a notarized document declaring me off every loan. They give Eli a framed copy of his chalk slogan. He hangs it by the door. Later, I sit alone on the porch swing, courage stone finally cool in my fist. Winds rustle maples. Somewhere a neighbor laughs. I think of toasts and ledgers, of how silence once felt like sacrifice but turned into a trap. I whisper into the evening, no more hidden costs. The air feels lighter, answering back. Friends, thank you for walking every mile of this story with me. If you ever find yourself holding secrets heavier than gifts, remember, grace can't live in the dark. Let it breathe, let it speak, let it knock until every locked door opens.